This is Metabolic Mastery, a KORR Medical Technologies podcast dedicated to advancing knowledge and practice in metabolic testing. Welcome to Metabolic Mastery, brought to you by KORR Medical Technologies. I'm Dr. Marc Humbert. This is my co-host, Dr. Cameron Garber. And today we've got Diane Owen here. Diane is a photographer, mom of three, a runner. She's a graduate of our Becoming Body Smart program. So all-around awesome person. And so we brought her in to just talk about what it looks like on the client side of things. And kind of give you guys a peek beneath the hood there. So tell us a little about yourself. Tell us like where you were at when you found Body Smart.
Okay. So like you mentioned, I'm a mom of three, a photographer, busy
and
life.
Awesome photographer, by the way. Just everyone should know that.
Thank you. But I'm kind of the quintessential on again, off again athlete. Have been my whole life. I was a swimmer in high school, was a little bit of a gym rat in college, then didn't really do anything when I had little kids. As they got older, I dabbled in cycling and triathlon, tried to be a runner lots of different times and told myself I was not built to be a runner many times because I would just get in this cycle of I would push really hard, I would get injured, I would stop exercising, I'd gain like 50 pounds, wait until I was really tired of that, and then I would start over again. And it was just a really hard cycle that I got in a lot of times, and just really felt like I wasn't made to be an athlete, wasn't made to do that kind of stuff regularly. My body didn't like it. I was always injured. And I had started running again for the millionth time, and I was having a really good training cycle, got injured again, and that's when I called up Cameron. I was like, I don't want to be in this cycle again. I don't want to just stop running, gain all the weight back, start this over again. And so I came in to figure out my hip, and then we really started looking at what I could change to stop the cycle and not just be doing this all the time for the rest of my life. So
what do you feel like, so you mentioned how you'd been through that cycle several times. What do you feel like made that time like this is the time, like this ends here?
I think it was back in 2019. I had a similar injury on the other side, and I had stopped exercising. I literally gained, I think, about 60 pounds that time. And it took me a long time, and that was during COVID and everything. So the world was a mess anyway.
Yeah, it kind of did a number on all of us.
Right, it did a number on all of us. But when I'd come back from that, it had been, kind of my kids were getting a little older. It was where I could focus on myself a little more. And I was really enjoying feeling a little bit more like myself and gaining some of that back and feeling like I was gaining some athletic ability. And I was like, I'm not going to let this derail me this time. Like, I've just done it too many times, and I know that starting over is so hard. And I've done it so many times that I just didn't want to start over again. So I had to figure out a way to move forward from where I was rather than quitting and having to start over again.
And you, so as I'm remembering things, it's interesting. When you came, you're kind of one of the people that have said something that so many people say to me. It's like, I feel like I've tried everything, right? And nothing seems to be working for me. And that kind of that frustration. And I hear that so much. And my heart goes out to people because they really have tried so many things to improve their health and fitness and want to be there, want to be consistent. But then so much of the information and the programs and things that you tried just didn't lead toward long-term success, right? Is that accurate?
Definitely true. I mean, I had even done VO2 max testing before, and it had, been interpreted a little bit differently. And I had used it more as like an excuse to push harder.
Mm-hmm.
And, I felt like every time in the cycle, I would end up with my metabolism destroyed and my relationship with food was terrible. And, it was just this constant cycle of everything got worse by the end of the cycle. Even thinking I'm using the best information and trying all the right things.
Yeah. So that it's always interesting when people come to us saying that, like, oh, I've tried everything, because it's not for lack of effort. It's just sometimes bad information and not knowing what to do for your body. And that's, it's always interesting when people have tried VO2 testing and things. So much of that really is how we apply that information. And that's a big part of why we are doing this podcast, honestly, is to help people understand how they can better apply the results that they're getting from the testing to the individual and things like that. So that's interesting to hear that, that you had done that before. I kind of don't remember that, but that's awesome. So what I guess made the difference then with what we were doing? What was kind of your perception of that?
I think it was just, I mean, I'd heard of like low heart rate training, and I'd read a little bit on it before. I'd read a book like several years before and been like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And I think I tried it for like 2 weeks, and I was like, I have to go way too slow to be in zone 2. Like, this doesn't work for me. But having, like some science backing on like, if you can give this some time,
Right.
if you can be patient, and where I was at, where it was like, it's either that, be patient and build up from here, or start my cycle all over. I might as well do what they're telling me and be patient and give this a real try with information on how my body is working right now, and see where we can go from there.
And to your credit, you did it. Like, you stuck with it so consistently, and it was so awesome. You'd always send us little messages like, hey, thank you so much. This is working. And I'd always be like, well, you're the one doing the work. I'm not going on every run every morning and things like that. But how was that when you learned that your run wasn't really a run at first? It was just a walk, maybe a walk jog as you started to get into it.
It was definitely hard. I was never fast. I had always kind of been a walk runner. So I was like, oh, this will be fine. And I was like, oh, it's even more than I thought. And it definitely was like, run a little bit, walk for quite a while, run a little bit, walk for quite a while. And honestly, I'm still that way with a lot of my zone 2 runs. And that's one of the things I've loved, that I have learned how to like listen to my body, and some runs are really slow, and that's okay, because I know some runs are going to be faster, and that works out. But it was definitely hard the first little while. I remember having a few calls like, am I ever gonna not be a 13-14 minute miler? Like, this is killing me a little bit. And just not getting very much distance in the time and stuff was hard at first to swallow. But I knew, I listened to every podcast I could get my hands on. I read several books. I was just trying to get as much information to tell myself that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and that it was going to pay off eventually and get me through that.
And now it has, right? You're running faster than you ever have. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
I see you posting PRs all the time.
Yeah. I was looking this morning from the half marathon I did right before I started working with you in 2023 to my last half marathon. I've taken off 22 minutes.
That's awesome.
Off of my half marathon time. So,
and no injuries in that time.
Right.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
So tell me about that, kind of the injury cycle too with training. You came to us with some hip issues, and you'd had previous hip issues. You tried physical therapy and other things before. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I'd had lots of different injuries. I feel like if you can name a running injury, I've probably had it. IT band syndrome and plantar fasciitis, and issues with both hips, lots of things. And I think, again, maybe bad information. A lot of times I would get injured and it's like, oh, gotta rest. I gotta rest. That's the only thing you can do. You gotta rest until it goes away. And then you re-injure yourself because you let everything stop working and whatever. So I just was continually, I'd come back from one injury just to get the next injury. And now, if I get little aches and pains and things like,
which is a normal part of activity,
right? Yeah, normal part of activity. I think about it differently. I'm like, okay, what do I need to strengthen? What do I need to work on mobility? What how do I need to adjust the runs that I'm doing instead of like, oh, better quit. My body doesn't like this, which was totally my mentality before. Like I said, so many times, I'm not built to be a runner. My body hates it. It always hurts. And that's not the case anymore. Sometimes it hurts, but then I figure out how to move forward from there and use the information my body is giving me instead of just listening to conventional wisdom of
Stop
you better
running.
rest it.
Yeah.
Ice it and rest it. And
we hear that all the time, where I always say, if a health practitioner tells you to stop running, run away from them. Because running's not the problem. It may be the way we're running in terms of volume or intensity or things like that. So it's more of, how can I switch up what I'm doing and keep moving? And that's one of the things that I love. The metabolic testing gives us those insights of, where can I run for my body that's going to be in a safe pace and a safe zone where I can keep moving and avoid further injury and problems. And heart rate is such a great indicator of that. If we have some kind of niggle, right, some kind of ache or pain that's coming in, that will reflect in our heart rate. And if we stay in our zone, it really does help so much.
Yeah. It's so interesting how many times I'll go on a run and, I'm like, oh, why is my heart rate so high today? And then I can think about it and be like, oh, well, I didn't sleep last night, or I ate crappy food yesterday, or my stress level's been really high, or, oh yeah, that ankle's been kind of bugging me. Like, there's so many things that are playing a role in that. And I'm like, okay, that means today needs to be an easier day. I need to pull back a little bit from whatever I was planning to do, listen to my body, pay attention to that heart rate zone, and then I'm still able to do it, and then still show up the next day instead of sidelining myself.
Exactly. And having days off. And conversely, I find that when I do that too, that I'll have days where I'm like, oh, my heart rate's actually pretty low today compared to, and so I can push it a little bit more on those days. And so it allows me to know each day, like, when I can and can't push it and things like that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a couple times of learning to listen to your body. And I feel like this is such an important thing for people to learn. I think sometimes, there's a caveat to that, right? Like, learn to listen to your body with good data, so that listening to your body is accurate. Because sometimes listening to your body is like, oh, well, I really don't feel like exercising at all, right? Like, and
if I listen to that part of my body, I may never exercise.
My body's saying to stay in bed.
It's too cold. It's the winter. It's dark outside. I guess, right? So what do you feel like helped you kind of calibrate to be able to listen to your body in that way, so that now that this is just kind of like an automatic thought process? Like, oh, my heart rate's like this. Let me run through my checklist, right? How's my sleep? How's my nutrition? How's my, yada, yada, yada.
I think mostly it's just that I have been consistent. As soon as I started the program, I just told myself, like, you're in this, be in it, like, be consistent, do what they're asking you to do, and just pay attention to the data, pay attention to what your body's telling you. And I started to see the trends, I could just notice it and I could feel it. And I know that the consistency pays off. So when I'm having those days where I'm just like, oh man, it's cold, I really don't want to do this. But I'm like, I know that I will feel better in the end. And I know that I can pay attention to my body once I'm out there and see where I need to be. And if I need to pull back a little bit because I really am not feeling it today, then I can do that. But let's get out there and see what it's saying.
As we always love to say, consistency is key, right? It is not every day is perfect. And I think that's sometimes what people get in the habit of, this all or nothing thinking, and consistency means I always have to do the workout exactly. I got to have nutrition perfectly on point, but it's just like, I'm just repeating the behavior. And so this becomes automatic, right? Yeah. Even if it's not my best run, my fastest run, even if I have to modify it, it's still going out and doing the behavior and keeping that habit alive.
Right. It's not always doing your best. It's doing the best for what you have today.
Right.
Right. Because rarely do we ever do our best, right? In anything in life. Is it always our best effort? Instead, it's the amount of effort that I can give today. And so it's the best I've got today,
right,
versus the best I could possibly do. And that's the thing. It's about showing up, and it's consistency that allows those adaptations to happen, versus like pushing really hard for 6 weeks, trying to get back into it, and then having it all fall apart again because we pushed past what we're capable of, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in our program, we call it Becoming Body Smart, because the whole idea is to learn more about your body and create more of a long-term plan, right? And so you've actually been done with our program for almost 2 years, I think, or a year and a half.
I feel like a year, maybe.
Yeah, a little over a year. Okay.
Something like
So
that.
yeah, and you've been able to stay consistent since then.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about, other than a few vacations,
I've
which
missed one day.
one day, right,
I run 6 days a week, and yeah, I missed one day for illness last month.
which is, I think that's excusable. If you're not feeling well, to miss a day is okay.
Yeah.
And so I mean, there are so many benefits to running. What has helped you to stay that consistent? And then what do you feel like you've learned from being that consistent?
I would say there's been benefits in all aspects of my life. It's been a huge help for like my mental health. I have 3 teenagers. My life is very stressful. I'm a business owner. My father lives with me that's 90. Like, I have a lot going on.
Yeah.
And there is just something about, like, I know that every day I'm going to take care of myself first. And it's funny, my husband and I call it our running math. Every night when we go to bed, we sit down, we like look at the weather, we look at our schedule, we figure out when the run is happening the next day so that it is scheduled in, so that we know we're going to make it happen.
That's so key.
Yeah, it's really important. And I love that we just do that every day. And we're like, okay, we have meetings tomorrow. How are we going to make it work? How's it going to work? And we have one kid that's in 2 different schools. There's a lot of driving around and stuff. And sometimes it's like, okay, we have 55 minutes between when we drop her off and when we pick her up. Which route can we do? How can we get that done in that time? You know, but it's just so helpful that it is built in that I'm going to take care of myself for at least that 45 minutes or whatever I have every day. My kids gave me a t-shirt for Mother's Day that says running because murder is wrong. And they know that I am a happier person after I get my run in. Like, it's just really helpful for me to kind of center myself and take that time every day. So, obviously the physical benefits, I've been keeping the weight off. I've been feeling strong. I've been hitting PRs, and doing those things, you know, every time you hit that next milestone, it helps you be motivated to like keep being consistent because it's working. It's doing what it's supposed to do. And, I just feel so much better when I stay consistent. And it, you know, I love my dad every day. He's 90. He's very healthy for a 90-year-old. And every day he's like, you guys are going to outlive me. I'm like, well, I hope so. But, you know, he's like, you're going to live to be 100. And my kids see it, they think we're crazy. They're constantly telling us we're masochists and stuff. But they know that it's so important to me. And even if they're not all runners right now or whatever, like, I know they're seeing it and that they recognize that there are benefits for me and hopefully for them at some point.
It'll spill over eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
My son is off at his first semester of college, and he's started using exercise some to help with the stress and whatever. And he was telling me he ran a couple of miles the other day, like way faster than I run, which is really annoying. But, you know, like, it makes me happy that he's finding that out, that it is a helpful source of dealing with stress and all of those things. So
I've got a college age son as well that kind of just said the same thing to me. And that is rewarding because he always like hated every hike until we got started. And then they loved every hike.
Right.
But then, you know, when we say, hey, we're going on a hike, it's like, whoa. But now he's like, oh man, I just was feeling so out of shape. And so I've been exercising every morning and it's made such a difference. And it's like, see? I told you. Yeah, it's fun.
So, you know, you mentioned in the beginning, swimmer in high school, gym rat in college, got into running, and that kind of conventional wisdom taught you to handle injuries, handle things a certain way. Like, where do you feel like you got that mindset from? Do you feel like it was a specific person, specific experiences? Like, where did that come from?
I think a variety of things, but several of the injuries, I would go to doctors or even physical therapists or whatever, and they'd, give me some exercises, but also say, you should take a month off. You should, whatever. And so that's always the mindset. And then it was always, do I do that? And then I have to start over. And I know how hard it is to start over. And then I wouldn't start over for when I was supposed to, because
Right.
I dreaded the starting over process. And so, yeah, I think a lot of it was I was told by medical professionals that this is what I needed to do, that I was going to make everything worse if I kept moving.
Right.
And
My biggest pet peeve. Run away from them if they tell you to stop moving.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually a good point to zoom in on what you're talking about here. What you talked about earlier is this kind of pain injury cycle that people get into. And that we've talked about on the podcast before, this idea of load versus capacity, that when we get injured, it's because we've overloaded our current ability to be able to handle and recover from that. And so what happens is it's not just static, is you learn, right?
Yeah.
I get pain or I get an injury, and so I stop. And we don't just stay at the same level, right? Our tissues get less robust because our body is incredibly adaptable, and it always adapts to the demands placed upon it, or the lack of demand, right?
Right.
And so what we found, right, is that people get there, they drop capacity, they start doing things again, they get pain or injury, they stop, they lose capacity. And it ends up being just this very self-defeating cycle that people are in, very frustrating. And so being able to learn, like, hey, my body can adapt. It just may need to be a little bit slower in a little bit different way, but I can continue doing the things. And then also what you said earlier about pain. Like, I think we've developed this maybe not the best relationship with pain, right?
This fear of
pain.
Yeah.
And pain is a signal, right? It's our body saying, hey, pay attention to here. But I love what you said earlier is it's like, okay, well, what's going on? Like, oh, have I been getting enough rest? Have I increased my activity elsewhere? What's going on? And what can I learn from this pain? What do I need to modify so that I can manage this and stay on track?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think, anyway, wanted to highlight that. So going back to this injury cycle that you were in, tell me about how that affected your identity.
I think, like I said, I told myself I wasn't an athlete, that I wasn't capable of being an athlete, even though I had been, like in high school and whatever. And it was like, well, I was an athlete as a teenager, but as an adult, like I don't have the body for it. I haven't, been doing enough, like in my 20s or whatever, to be able to be an athlete later in life. And, yeah, like I really believed that. And every time I would try something, triathlon or whatever, and I was never, I'm not a super competitive, I'm competitive with myself, but I'm not super competitive. So I could go in it being like, it doesn't matter how fast I am or whatever, but it still was like, I'd look around and be like, all these people are like so much better at this than me. Like
How did that 75-year-old just pass me?
Right. Like
that happens at any level though.
Right.
You'll have somebody pass you that you're like, what?
Yeah. The mom's pushing like 3 kids in the stroller up the hill so much faster than you and stuff. But I just believed that like it wasn't in me, that I just wasn't an athlete, and that I needed to exercise because I know it's good for me, but like I'm never going to be good at anything,
Yeah. And so what did that mean to you about yourself? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure.
So like the fact that other people can do that, but Diane can't, like, what did that make you think about yourself?
I think it just, it made it hard to like want to do all the things I knew I should do, because it was like, I'm going to put in all this effort and I'm going to come out injured and incapable on the other side of it. And so like, what's the point of like putting in all this effort and paying for a coach or buying another program or whatever, because I'm going to end up in the same spot every time.
So how has that shifted now?
Um, I am a crier. I'll just say
That's
that.
all right.
No,
Cheers, welcome.
Me too.
Um,
I'm
I have been training for my last couple of races with a cousin of mine that's in her 50s, and both of us were talking about how we've hit this phase in our lives where we see more potential in ourselves now than we ever have, and like it's crazy to me that like I'm 43, I'm hitting PRs, every time I work for a PR, and I've also like I'm really good at balancing that too, being like, this race is fun. This race is PR. This race is, I'm going to cheer on my friend who's trying to learn to run or,
Yeah.
I balance that a lot because I know that's important for keeping things.
You can't PR every
Right,
race.
you
Yeah.
can't PR every race. But like, I see so much potential in myself now. And it's not like, I'm never going to be an Olympic runner. I'm not particularly fast still, but like I see that I am capable of so much more than I ever thought I was. And so now when I look at big goals that used to be like, there's no way, like Diane is not capable of doing that. Now I'm like, I could probably do that. It'll take me some time. It would, take some effort, but like I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've had a few like breakthrough races over the last couple of years, and every time I've been like, holy crap, like, did I just do that? Like, how did I do that? And I'm like, because I did all the things along the way, I remember it was, probably a little while after I started working with you guys. I remember I was always looking at runners and they'd talk about sprint pace and tempo pace and race pace and whatever. And I was like, I have dying pace and walking pace. Like, I have two paces.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yep.
I don't understand. Like, this does not compute. And I remember I was doing the work, and I went to do a 10K, and I had kind of in the back of my head, like, I want to do it in an hour. I don't know if I can do that. That was not the pace I was training at. But, I'm just going to see what I can do. And I went out and I did a 59 something. And I was like, holy cow, I ran faster than I train at today. That's a race pace. Like, that's a different pace than
Yeah.
a training pace. And it started to like click with me that I did have more paces in me, and I did have like higher levels of effort in me and stuff than I had given myself credit for before. And so then I started, at the beginning of the plan, it was mostly zone 2. It was mostly those really slow, painfully slow sometimes runs. And then we started adding in the harder stuff, the fast finishes and the speed work. And I started being like,
Okay.
wow, there's some speed in there. And then you have those days where I remember the first 3-mile run I did where I ran the whole time in zone 2. And I was like, whoa, I did not think that would ever happen. And that's still rare. It still has to be a good day and a good route and whatever for that to happen. But to have those days where it was like, my fitness is changing.
Yeah.
I am able to run more at lower heart rates. I'm able to run faster at lower heart rates. Like, comparing recent races to past races, even though my effort is higher, my speed is higher, my heart rate's about the same, sometimes less than it has been in previous races. Because the work is working, it's moving me forward, and I just see so much potential, and like, I can push myself. I know when to push myself, when to not to,
Yeah.
and it really helps to see that potential and know that I can still do things in my 40s and keep improving. And
I love that so
do
much.
better.
So just a peek behind the curtain a little bit.
Yeah.
The process that Marc just kind of took Diane through, we call that going 3 layers deep. So where he asked some questions about like, why did you first start the program? And so I do this with everybody that comes through our door. I call it going 3 layers deep. We say, why are you here today? And they tell us about their hip pain or other things, frustrations with training and all that stuff. And then the next question is, okay, so how is that affecting you in your training, and they'll give us kind of the next tier of like, well, it's keeping me from being able to participate. It's keeping me from really being who I want to be, how I want to be, all those things. And so that usually kind of gets on this edge of an emotional response, and is helpful because it helps us see the context of it and understand better. But then the final question Marc asked of how does that make you feel about you is usually a tough question to answer. And we often see tears with, anybody, with grown men, I've had elite athletes and burly grown men break down in tears and really dive deep into why they're really there. Because they may have been dealing with that pain or that training problem or things for years prior to really being ready to do something about it. And them signing up to do a test or to come and see you for their problem is more of a cry for help than they even realize. And so when we dig that third layer deep of how does that make you feel about you, we get to an emotional level where people are ready to make change in their life and lifestyle. And so we went through this process, and it's fun to be able to add the fourth layer of, okay, how has that changed for you now that you've been doing these things that we've talked about? That's really fun. And so that on the subsequent visits, instead of checking in with people about their pain when they come back or their whatever their problem was, instead of saying like, how's your hip doing? I like to ask instead, how is the progress coming? How much closer are you to your end goal? How much, asking a question in that way of helping them realize the ways in which they've changed. How are you feeling differently in your runs since you've been doing this? And inevitably, because they'll be like, oh, it's so slow, it's so painful and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but how do you feel afterwards? Well, actually, for the first time ever, my knees haven't hurt when I get done with a run, or my hip hasn't hurt, or whatever. And so being able to go 3 layers deep initially helps them buy into whatever your plan of care is so much better. And so it allows them to really see why they're there, more than just the surface hip pain or knee pain or plantar fasciitis or whatever else it is. It allows them to really see their internal motivation, their why for coming to see you, and that it's much deeper than just pain or frustration or whatever. And so being able to dive that 3 layers deep and then going that 4th layer deep every time they come in and asking them not about their initial problem, but asking them about how they've changed, it allows them to see that they are making progress. And so that's really fun. Again, a peek behind the curtain behind some of what we do. And so you mentioned one thing that you paid for coaches and programs and all these things. Our program is not inexpensive. How did investing in something that was maybe a stretch, how did that help you be more compliant? Or did that help you be more compliant, I guess?
I mean, like I say, I've spent money before, and I tend to be pretty good at like doing what I'm supposed to do. But I think because I'd gotten to that point of like, the buck stops here, we're not going to continue this cycle. And then I finally found somebody that like, it made sense to me that moving was what we're supposed to do and stopping was the wrong answer. And that hadn't worked for me so many times to just stop and let my body heal itself or whatever, that hadn't worked. And so hearing what you had to say and knowing that the Becoming Body Smart program was going to address not just my hip, but all the aspects and give me a training plan and give me strength workouts to do and stuff where I was like, okay, I'm going to have all the areas covered that we can talk about and that I can keep moving. I don't have to stop. I don't have to start the cycle over again. I don't have to gain the weight back. Like, this can cover everything and we can keep moving forward. And yeah, I mean, it helps when you're paying the money to know on those early days where you're like, I really don't want to do this. And I hate going out and running 14-minute miles. And, but it was like, if this works, if I can, get through this and I am stronger and better for it, then it will be worth every day that you show up and just do what's on the plan. And so I showed up and did what was on the plan, you know?
When did it switch for you from if this works to, wow, this is working? How long did that take, would you say?
I mean, I feel like it was a few months of like, I really had to tell myself every day, this is what this is supposed to be like at the beginning. And like I said, I read lots of books and listened to lots of podcasts. And sometimes I'd listen to a podcast and be annoyed because the person's like, oh yeah, I did it for 8 weeks and I went from a 12-minute mile to a 6-minute mile. And I'm like, no, you're
Not helpful.
Yeah, not helpful.
You 20-something, stop it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's 19. That's why. But, you know, it helped to like hear story after story of like, I was really slow and it felt really painful at first and whatever, but eventually I just started to notice just a little bit. I can run a little bit longer. I can run a little bit faster, you know, all those things. And I did start to notice that and started to see that, yeah, it wasn't every run, but there would be a run. I felt great. My heart rate was low. I was able to run a lot more today. I've never been able to do that before. So that run would show me like, okay, keep doing it. And then you'll have another run like that. And then keep doing it. And so, you know, it was probably 3 months of like, just do the work. Just do the work. I know you're not seeing it. You're not feeling fast. You're not feeling, you know, magically better yet. But like, if you keep showing up, you'll keep having those runs that show you that it's possible.
Yeah.
And then it's changing.
Well, and I remember some of our conversations of like, where you'd be like, yeah, I just don't feel like I'm improving or whatever. And then be like, okay, well, how many miles did you get in this week? Okay. How many more is that than 6 weeks ago?
Right.
And what was your pain like during that versus what was your pain like 6 weeks ago? It's like, oh, I guess I am improving, you know, and that's a really common process to go through with people of just asking them some follow-up questions and helping them see like, yeah, I guess I am improving. It just is a slow process. And it's like, yeah, it is a slow process, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And when we try to accelerate that, that's typically when injuries and pain and problems come in.
Yeah.
And so I honestly think that the slower we can build up, typically the higher we can peak, because we're less likely to have that interrupted, and consistency is where things can happen. And we see that in so many aspects in life. Businesses that build really fast often wind up declaring bankruptcy because they overextend themselves and have too many locations and things. You know, I think that's a fairly universal principle that sticking to a plan of growth is better than just wild growth, right?
Yeah. And I tell lots of people about low heart rate training now, and I've had lots of friends, you know, ask me lots of questions about it. And I've had people be like, oh, but, you know, I can only run 3 days a week and I really like getting my 15 miles in or, you know, whatever it is. Like I can't change that. And, you know, I can look back and, you know, I used to run 10 to 15 miles a week, in pain a lot, sore a lot, tired a lot. And now I'm running 25 to 30 miles a week, feeling ready to show up every day. And like, yeah, it took time to build up to that 6 days. And I've had people tell me like, oh, there's no way I could run more than 4 days a week. My joints can't handle it or whatever. And I was like, I thought there was no way I could ever run more than 3 days a week. I thought there was no way. My body hated running. My body wasn't built for running. There was no way I could do it. I show up 6 days a week and I feel great most of the time. I mean, everybody has bad runs and sore days and whatever, but like, because I did the slow build up and we slowly added time, we slowly added days, I got to where running 6 days a week works for me and my body, and it feels better running 6 days a week and getting more miles in, even though some of those miles are really slow, and like that's okay.
Right. And so sticking to, instead of mileage goals of like, I have to get my 5 miles in today, the number of miles don't matter as much as the number of minutes.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to have those be really slow miles, and not get as many miles in. That's okay. It's more about being consistent. And so, yeah, there are some days where your 5 miles becomes 3 miles because I just didn't have it in the tank today type of a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. It's more about showing up and being consistent, and the mileage really doesn't matter. So that's another question. What kind of, you signed up for our program with one of your at least one of your goals being weight loss and things like that. And this plays into the mileage as well. How was it to hear us talk about like, okay, weight loss may be one of the natural results, but it's not the focus of our program? Was that frustrating? Was that, or what did you think about that, I guess?
I think in a way it was refreshing because I'd done other programs where the promises are weight loss and like all the focus is on food and whatever. And I talked about, I've had some really bad relationships with food over the years because of all the yo-yoing and my weight going up and down so much. And so it was kind of nice that like nutrition was part of it. We know that nutrition needs to play a role in, for your joints and muscles and whatever, and for stress and all those things, like all of that had to play a role, but like having the focus not just be weight loss
Calorie
was
counting.
calorie counting and weight loss and food journaling and stuff like that was kind of refreshing for me to be like, it's all like we're working on all of it, but I don't have to like hyper focus on that because I have so many areas that I'm looking at and working on.
Yeah, we always say that weight loss will be the natural result of, living the healthy lifestyle. And same with pace or mileage or whatever, that getting more mileage in will be the natural result of training according to your body. And that will naturally build how many miles you get in your week, or your paces will naturally get faster as long as we train according to these principles. So the results that we see are the natural result of living according to certain principles.
Yeah.
And so same thing there, like weight loss becomes part of it. And so I ask permission before I share some of this. So last time you came in to test, you had lost about 35 pounds, I believe it was, something from when you started our program. I don't know where you're at now from there, but we did the math on that, and it was a 12% loss in body mass, which that's awesome. That's such a great change there. But what we saw was that it was only a 4% reduction in resting metabolic rate, which normally with weight loss, we see about a 1-to-1, where if you lose 1% body mass, you lose about 1% metabolic rate. And so having a 12% loss in body mass and a 4% loss in metabolic rate says that you're doing a lot of the right things, that you're eating enough, which I think was probably hard for you in the past with different programs that you were on. You were getting enough protein in, you were doing some strength training as well as you're running. And so it was keeping your whole metabolic engine strong enough that you were burning calories well. And we saw that in your metabolic test, you were burning more calories per hour. You had a better fat burn than you did before, all of those things. Well, how was that to realize those things about yourself and to see those changes?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see that like my body is working better. It's working more efficiently. It's doing the things it's supposed to do. And yeah, I remember when you pointed out that it hadn't dropped as much as the weight I'd lost, and I was like, oh, that's so great. That means I'm still burning a good amount of calories just being, and everything else I do is icing on the cake,
Well, and that was one of your kind of fears and concerns, is that my body doesn't work the way it's supposed to, right? That it is broken or whatever. Right. And so I love that we have objective data to show you that your body isn't broken, right? That your body does work as long as we treat it the way it needs to be.
Right. And, I mean, that's one of the things I love about VO2 max testing too, is that like a lot of times I did think like, I can't do this because the typical heart rate zones, the things you see, that your watch just gives you, or that you see out there in the 220 minus the age or whatever, didn't equate for what I was experiencing. And I was like, I can't run at zone 2 if my zone 2 is 120 or, whatever it says it is. I'm like, that doesn't happen for me. And so then to do the testing and be like, I'm not crazy. My heart rate zones are not what the average
the
Joe,
220 minus age says.
They are not just what the internet tells me my zones should be. And so it was very helpful to be like, okay, I have more room. to run than I thought I did, and things like that, where I can get the objective data on how my body works
Yeah.
and not just what the average, whatever that means. Like,
Right.
where do they come up with that? I don't know. And like, that was really helpful to be like, okay, this is my body. Diane's body does this and needs this and burns fat in this way.
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to do to work with that instead of information that does not apply?
Right. Yeah. Instead of following some Instagram guru and whatever that
Right.
doesn't know Diane's body. Yeah.
Well, I think that's, to that point is predictive equations can be helpful for just general idea, right? Ballpark.
Yeah. And
But
populations. It
right?
works great.
Great for populations and looking in trends over time. But for the individual, right? How Diane's body works, having that real-time testing and being able to see like, oh, this is how your body is using calories, and this is what happens during exercise, and these are the intensities that are going to help you to adapt and to recover, and make the progress that you're looking to make. And so I think that's one of the difficulties is that a lot of those equations are end up being geared towards higher intensities. I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day that were like, this isn't mashing, right? The heart rate zones that I'm supposed to, based on, percent of VO2 max or percent of this or that, like I'm exercising there and I feel exhausted after that when I'm in my zone 2. And it's like, well, let's look at your data, right? Oh, well, when we're looking here, we can see how your body is using fat, how it's using carbohydrate, and actually to kind of drive those adaptations ideally, like you would want to see that bumped down, right? You've got to slow down. You've got to stay in a different heart rate range. And then that will match more of what you're expecting to be a zone 2, right? Of this like comfortable pace.
Yeah.
Where we find that most people spend time in this like uncomfortably comfortable pace, right?
Yeah.
This intensity where like, and don't get us wrong, like any exercise is great. Please exercise. Right? But like when we exercise, when we train according to what our body needs, then we get the adaptations that move us in the direction of our goals. And obviously it depends on what our goals are, but so often we end up training at this intensity where we're feeling burnt out, where we're getting injured, and it's like, I can do this again day after day after day, but over time it kind of wears on you, right? And it's tiring versus now you go out on a run and it's like, oh, I'm only doing it for this length of time, but I could have gone, an hour or 2 hours or whatever. And so I think it's just crucial of like understanding what your body needs, and that like the testing isn't enough, right? Testing is great. It's so wonderful that we have this capability to test, but understanding what to do with the results of, okay, I have this data now. How am I going to apply that to training this person and helping them to exercise in a way that's really going to move them in the direction of their goals?
Yeah.
And so, and I want to point out, so we were talking about this before the podcast, and back to what we were saying about some of these outcomes being the natural byproduct of training in a way that supports your body. Tell us about your mileage goals for last year and this year. And I think this is a great point, right? Like we can still have goals, right? We can have these outcome goals, but they become a natural byproduct. They come as a result of our way of training.
Yeah.
So anyway, tell us about that. This is cool.
I wish I could look back and remember like what mileage I was at like 2022, 2023, but I know it was a lot lower because I was running less often. But last year I set a goal to run 1,000 miles in the year, and that felt, I actually originally put the goal at 800. And then as the year went on, I was like,
oh, I'm going to hit that.
I can hit that. I'm going to go for 1,000. And I ran my 1,000th mile on New Year's Eve, like squeaked it in. I got my 1,000 miles in. And so when I was setting the goal for this year, I was like, I'm going to go for 1,100. Because,
which I love. It wasn't like it's a stretch.
2,000.
Yeah.
Oh, let's double that.
I wanted to see if I could do a little more, but I knew that last year's load was good, that I was healthy, that I was running races, that I was enjoying it. So I didn't want to go too crazy, but I was like, we'll set the goal at 1,100.
So good.
And I should hit 1,100 this week. We're in the beginning of November. So I will probably get to 1,200-ish, but
which is awesome.
And I'm like so proud that I still feel like I've managed the load well. And and I've felt good. I've run 9 half marathons in the last 18 months. I haven't had any serious injuries. I haven't had any like burnout,
Yeah.
like
I love it.
I've just showed up. I'm consistent. I can do the work. I can run the races I want to run. I'm getting PRs. Like I said, when I set the goal for the PR, I'm not putting pressure on that for every race and everything. And I purposely mix those up, and I purposely sign up for races with people that need my support and things like that, where
I
I'm
love
like,
it.
I'm going to go, and this race is not about me, and I can do different things like that, because that helps me with that load too. And it helps me with that, making sure I don't burn out and don't push myself too hard, because some training cycles are harder than others. And so I, again, am listening to my body. And as I'm preparing for a race, I then think about, is this one we're going to push for a PR? How are we feeling? How are the heart rates looking? All of that. And then I can adjust as I go. And that's worked really well for me. I had a big PR last month in the St. George Half Marathon that I'd kind of been aiming for all year. And luckily the training cycles worked in my favor, and it
That's awesome.
worked out. So,
Yeah.
I love that so much. So I love that. In our program, we have these like 4 kind of phases. We call it measure. So get all your measurements and all your data. Learn, which is kind of learn about your body, and it's becoming body smart. So you learn how to be body smart. Practice, put those things into practice, and then share. So the ultimate sign that you've actually learned everything is that you can then share it with others. And so I love that you're like evangelizing, slow running, and, showing up for other people and running races with them and showing them like that they can do it, and you're being a support and things like that, that you're paying it forward, if you will. I love that, because it shows that you've internalized those principles and you're living that lifestyle, which is so awesome. That warms my heart. So anyway, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, to that point of living that lifestyle, like I would love to know how some of these changes have impacted your relationships. And before we go there, like I just want to, you kind of glossed over that, life is busy, there's a lot of challenges, but like, I just want people to understand in diving into this, like I want people to understand that like you can do hard things, right?
Yeah.
So to peel back things a little bit more, like just not only did your dad move in with you, but like he lost his wife, right? That was a big change. Being able to deal with having someone in your house and being able to find a way to get support from your siblings, right? Your kids just being busy teenagers is a whole thing. But then I know, you mentioned there were some specific challenges there, and, things with your career. Like this is not like Diane just had all this additional extra time and, it worked out. It was
Yeah.
like life was heavy. Life was hard. You had some big things, hit, and you've been able to manage your way through all of those. And so I just want to highlight, like, you really have put in the work. And even when things have been difficult or maybe not in the most ideal situation.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to that question of how has this shift in identity impacted your relationships?
I think like it's given me more confidence that I can do hard things, like you're saying, so that ends up applying to lots of places in my life. And, it's not easy, and I do deal with a lot of hard things. And I think like my kids see that I'm willing to put in the work, whether that means for them or in my relationship with them or in running or, whatever it is, like I'm going to show up and put in the work. And I think that has been, good for them to see. And, like we talked about, being that example to them of like, yeah, life is hard, and like we are going through some stuff, and we have to take care of ourselves through that process, or else we're not going to be able to do all the things we need to do.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's been really helpful. And my husband runs about probably 95% of my runs with me, and we've always liked doing stuff like that together, but it's been great that we get that time together. And, that's when we talk about the problems with the kids or, all the craziness of life. Like, it's easier to process that stuff together as we're moving and we're doing hard things. And some days I'm like, I really need a hard run today. How about you? Like, and there have been days, I mean, we had a couple of weeks ago, we had 2 of our kids in the ER on the same day for different things, like
Oh my
overlapping.
goodness.
I was literally like
Oh
bouncing
my
between rooms in the ER. And we got home and everybody was okay. We were getting them settled. And we looked at each other like, can we go on a run? And like, we've literally been at the ER like all day and whatever. And we were like, we definitely need to go on a run.
I love
And,
it. I love
like,
it.
and so it helps us both to like process things, and we know when we need that for each other. And like, if I can tell he's having a day that's like really hard and he might not be feeling like he wants to go do it, I'm like, we know we're going to feel better if we go pound out the pavement. And he does the same for me. And we do come out the other side like, oh, we're so glad we did that, even though we had to do it at 2 p.m. today or,
Right.
whatever had to happen. But like, we know the benefits and
Mhm.
we know that we're going to feel better, or it's going to give us that reset we need to like then be able to go home and like deal with the thing again, whatever it is.
And it's so true. It
Yeah.
really does help. I always tease my wife about that I'll be like, you need to go on a run, or you need to like go work out, go do
Yeah.
something, but it really does help reset,
Yeah.
clears your mind, clears your body. Like, it's so helpful. I love that you're doing it together too, because that just improves the health of your whole family.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Love that.
like I say, our kids tease us at this point, my youngest all the time. You're such a masochist. I'm like, it's not masochism. Like, we really enjoy it. But I think they do see we come home like feeling proud of ourselves. And, I do all these races. Every time I sign up for them, and they're like, you're doing another half marathon. I'm like, yep. And you better be just as proud of me this time because it's still hard. And I come home and I make them all come look at my medal. And, like,
Right.
I want them to see that I'm really proud of the effort that I'm putting in and that it means something.
Yeah.
I
I
love
love it.
one other thing that you said, and you actually said this twice so far, is learning to take care of myself. And I think this is one of those difficult things that is hard when life is so busy and when we have so many demands on our time and attention. And we think like, well, I can't possibly take time for myself. All these other people need my time. They need my attention. They need so much from me. But as you found, like, taking time for yourself, I think we think of it as selfish, right? And it certainly can be. But I think from what we've talked about, like, you've been able to say like, hey, I really care about these people in my life. Like, I love them so much. I want the best for them. And part of what the best for them is the best version of me. And so if I can be the best version of me, if I can take care of myself, then that's gonna help me show up so much
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
So like, how did you come to that conclusion?
I mean, I think at the beginning it did feel, every time I've started these cycles and whatever, it does feel a little selfish. Like, there's so many other things I could be doing. My house is such a mess. How can I, step away from that to do this? And there was, some guilt and some, am I being selfish? But I think, like you're saying, the more I did it and the more I saw what it did for me, that it did create that clearing of my head, clearing of my body, me being able to be like, okay, I can be more present now. I can be more calm now. I can be more patient. Like, because I did this for myself, then it started to be like, this isn't selfish because I can show up as this better
Mhm.
version. And it's that example too of like, this really helps me. What can you do? What can you find that will help you to feel like the best version of yourself as you're tackling your hard things, And
I love that.
yeah, I mean, sometimes, yeah, they might be like, oh, you're going to be gone all morning again. I'm like, yeah, it's my day for my long run. I'm sorry, I'm going to be gone a while or whatever. But like, then I'll be home and we can,
Right.
do whatever we need to do. But like,
Yeah.
I need to do this and it's a priority in my life. And they see that it gets scheduled into every day. And
Well, just like they have soccer practice or other things that it's like, well, I put my life on hold to bring you to soccer practice or other things like that. Like, yeah, I've got to go. This is my soccer practice. This is my time to develop me, because we should never stop growing and developing. And I think modeling that for our kids is really important.
Yeah.
And like showing them that your life matters too
Yeah.
is also important to show them, because they will eventually be in your role and need to know how to do that.
How to manage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I was talking to a buddy the other day, and he said something that I thought was funny and so true. He said, after the age of 25, adult development is optional, right?
Yeah, it's so true.
And I think we've joked before, right? Like some people, it's like, oh, I have 20 years of experience. And it's like some people have 20 years of experience, right? They've accumulated these lessons, they've grown, they've changed. Some people have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times.
Right.
And so being able to be committed to growth and to change. And I love this. It's just like, I want to show my kids I can do hard things. I want to set an example for them. And like, what can you do to become better, to tackle things better? Like, what does that look like for you in your life?
Yeah.
That it doesn't have to look exactly the same as it does for me, but find something.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
I've shown you that this works for me and this might work for you too, but find something that allows you to conquer those better. So
Yeah.
I think it's so cool.
Love it.
So one last question for you is, like for people that find themselves in the place that you were, right? I've tried everything. I'm in this cycle of, try and then feel like I'm failing and try and feel like I'm failing. What would you want to say to them? What would you want them to hear? And then what would you want them to understand from what they heard?
I think just keep moving, first of all, and that it's okay to go slow, to build slow, to take the time that you need for your body to adapt and to see those changes and to build those habits and to, create the habits and things in your life that you need to carry all of this. Like, it's okay if it's a baby step, and lots of baby steps add up to lots of miles, like just be okay with being humble and being humbled by, what you can do right now, but just do that and just take a little step forward every day to like, what can I do to just be a little bit better? And yeah, it's okay to be slow. It's okay to walk. I see so many new runners who are so worried about taking walk breaks or that their pace is slow or whatever. And I comment on all the runners groups and be like, walking is totally okay. And like, if that's what your body needs to adapt and to get that time on your feet and to build up to what you need, then that is okay. And it's actually a great thing that you're listening to your body and you're adjusting to what it needs and taking it as it needs it, and that it will pay off in the end if you just keep moving forward.
Love it.
Keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's such great messages. And that really is the key, is just build slowly enough that your body can adapt, and that because it's not just your body that has to adapt. It's your entire lifestyle that has to adapt. It's your kids being okay with the fact that you're going on a run. It's your spouse, like adapting their schedule to, make up for that and things like that. Your whole life and lifestyle, because when you go on a run or exercise or things, you show up differently with your family and loved ones. And so it has to be a slow building up process, because it's kind of like saying, if we went to a dietitian and they tell you, well, the science says that eating a vegan diet or whatever the diet is the most effective way, and then we switch our whole lifestyle overnight to this new diet, the likelihood that we're going to stick with that is so minimal, because we're showing up differently to family parties and restaurants and, hanging out with friends and stuff. All of a sudden you're this new person that's this 40-50% change of your lifestyle. And so we're not likely to do that. Same thing with exercise. All of a sudden we make this massive shift in our lifestyle. If you just went to 6 days a week right off the bat, like your kids would be like, where's mom?
Yeah.
Your husband would be like, where's my wife? And, all these things. But because you were able to, and I love that you said the humility to do that, to like, I'm just going to take it a step at a time and build up and allow your lifestyle to mesh with that.
Right.
And they become one thing instead of, here's my lifestyle and then this exercise thing that I'm trying to do.
To force.
Force, right.
Yeah.
And instead that becomes one thing that exercise is like brushing your teeth or other activity. Like it's just part of your lifestyle. It's just the thing you do. And going to bed without exercising feels like going to bed without brushing your teeth, right? Like that same kind of feel of like, this is just part of my lifestyle. This is just part of who I am. And that's awesome. Love it.
Well, and just being able to recognize that, like, there's going to be, like, anytime that we change, there's going to be some level of internal resistance, sometimes a level of external resistance. And that's just like part and parcel of this process. You know, you mentioned that there's some days that it's so early or it's cold, like, I don't want to get up, but I just do it, right? That, like, even though I don't feel like doing it, I can still do the thing.
Yeah.
and, you know, it's like the principles of changing our physiology, right? Of adapting, of getting stronger, of getting faster, like, those are the same regardless of who you are. But then it's being able to map your individual psychology, your individual life, your relationships onto that. And that's where a lot of the challenge comes. But again, you know, what you said about being humble and just taking it one step at a time, like, gives your psychology, gives life the time to adapt. And so I love highlighting that point.
Yeah. And that's where having that plan in place too is so helpful. That's why my husband and I plan every night, you know, what it's going to look like. And
Love it.
I have, you know, the workouts planned ahead of time and stuff because it helps me so much to have that plan, and it just becomes a non-negotiable part of my life rather than I'm trying to force it in where it doesn't fit.
Yeah. I hope I can fit it in versus, oh, it's in.
Yeah.
Life will just, you know.
It's there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Diane. It was good to catch up, and thanks for sharing your story with our listeners. As always, if you want more content like this, remember to like, follow, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Ready to take your metabolic testing to the next level? Visit KORR.com to learn more about purchasing our metabolic test equipment.